Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It's time for Headliners, a first look at tomorrow's papers. It's our first anniversary. We're celebrating in style two brilliant comedians, two heroes of mine, Josh Howie and Lewis Schaefer, live in the studio. Big opinions, big laughs, and lots of stories to get through. I'll see you after the headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
Mark, thank you. In the top story on GB News tonight, a former British soldier has been killed fighting Russian forces in Ukraine. Jordan Gately's family says he was shot in the eastern city of Severodonetsk. He'd left the British Army in March. In a statement on social media, his parents described him as a hero, saying after careful consideration, he went to Ukraine to help. They added that both Jordan and his team were proud of the work they were doing and that missions they were going on were dangerous, but they said were necessary. Protests have been taking place outside an immigration removal centre near Gatwick Airport.
Refugees are welcome here!
That comes as the government prepares to deport the first group of asylum seekers to Africa. The demonstrators shook the outer fence of the facility while people inside chanted, "No Rwanda." An appeal against a ruling which allowed a flight to go ahead on Tuesday will be heard at the High Court tomorrow. Unions have criticised a potential government plan to change the law, allowing agency workers to cover for striking staff. Major travel chaos is expected later this month after railway workers voted overwhelmingly in favour of industrial action in a dispute over pay, pensions and conditions. Writing in the Sun on Sunday newspaper, the Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps, said they could also be banned from working overtime to make up for lost earnings during the strike. Labour's calling for greater transparency ahead of the introduction of new legislation on the Northern Ireland Protocol. The party wants the government's legal advice to be published, and that comes after the Northern Ireland Secretary, Brandon Lewis, said the new bill, which gives ministers powers to scrap elements of the agreement, won't breach international law. An urgent investigation has been ordered into petrol station operators as prices continue to hit record highs. The Business Secretary is responding to concerns by some of them that they're failing to pass on fuel duty cuts. Kwasi Kwarteng has written to the Competition and Markets Authority saying drivers are rightly frustrated that the 5 pence a litre reduction hasn't stopped prices from rising. To the United States now, where senators look close to agreeing on a framework for tougher gun safety legislation. The plan has now received enough support from Republicans to pass through the Senate. The move comes after tens of thousands of people rallied across the United States. If passed by Congress, it would mark the first significant new gun law in decades. And veterans of the Falklands War have marked its 40th anniversary with a service of remembrance in Blackpool. Members of the Tumbledown Veterans and Families Association marched to the Blackpool Cenotaph to remember those who lost their lives at the Battle of Mount Tumbledown. Many had served in the 2nd Battalion Scots Guards. The successful mission ultimately played an important part in Argentina's surrender. You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News, where now it's time for Headliners.
I'm Mark Dolan. Welcome to Headliners, a first look at tomorrow's papers in the company of two top comedians. And tonight, we've rolled out the red carpet. Two of my heroes, let me tell you, the brilliant New York comedian Lewis Schaefer and the brilliant North London comedian the marvellous Josh Howie. Chaps, great to have you with us. Lots of stories to get through. Josh, apologies you didn't get the memo about dressing correctly for national television.
No, I didn't. But thank you so much for making me feel so welcome.
No, you know what it is? I go the other way, right? Because people that work in a Ferrari garage, they got to look out for people like you. Because you could either be a complete waster with no money, or you could be a maverick billionaire.
No, I'm a waster with no money.
Yeah, but you're heading for the other thing, aren't you?
That's the dream. That's what.
And if I look at Lewis, not only do I sort of trust you as a national broadcaster, but I feel like I'd like to borrow money from you.
Yeah, I'm very similar to Josh. I'm a waster with no money, but at least I look good. At least I made the effort.
Well, now you're on GBNews, so all of those problems has been solved. Lots of stories to get through, and let's start with a first look at tomorrow's front pages. And here's the Daily Mail. Fascinating story. Take a look at this. New Rwanda flight farce. As Priti Patel faces appeals from all 31 migrants due on the first plane tomorrow. Will it even take off? Also, Prince Andrew asks for his royal status back and to be Grenadier Guards Colonel again. Good luck with that. Next up, the Daily Telegraph. European judges to be stripped of protocol powers. Boris Johnson is expected to face fresh rebellion over a bill that opponents say would break international law. Also, a really sad story covered by several papers. A British former soldier killed fighting in Ukraine against Russian forces. Rwanda hits back at criticism of migrant scheme is the other story on the front page of the Telegraph. Next up, The Independent. Britain killed fighting Russia in Ukraine. The former British soldier Jordan Gatley tragically shot dead in the eastern Donbass region, according to his father. What a terrible loss. This guy, just in his mid-20s. Tory rift over Johnson's plan to override the Northern Ireland Protocol. MPs warn move could prove as toxic with voters as the Iraq War. Let's head over to The Guardian now. Overriding Northern Irish deal will damage UK investment, warns the Confederation of British Industry. Boris Johnson's food plan is not a strategy, says his top advisor, Henry Dimbleby, the founder of the Leon restaurant chain. And how about this in the front page of the Financial Times? Tories attack Johnson over bid to rip up Northern Ireland trade deal. There you go. The Tories heading there seemingly closer and closer to civil war following that vote of confidence in the Prime Minister earlier this week. The Daily Mirror now. Have we got that, Jake? Yeah, let's have a look. Free school meals scandal. 1 million kids to go hungry. Boris Johnson rejects a plea to extend the scheme to all children living in poverty. More than 1 million children living in poverty will stay hungry as the Prime Minister today snubs a plea to extend free school meals. Of course, that's a story that was brought into sharp focus by the Manchester United footballer Marcus Rashford. The Times next. Universities facing new China cash crackdown. A move to stop the UK's values being compromised from generous Chinese investment. Energy market reform will cut fuel bills, say The Times. And killed in battle, Jordan Gatley, a British Army veteran, shot dead whilst fighting for Ukraine in the eastern Donbass region. Metro now. Brits killed on Ukraine frontline, death of our hero. Again, covering that very, very sad story. And last but not least, the Daily Star. Heatwave water alert. Drought of order, screamed the Star. Record Baker may be the hottest ever. It's going to be a scorching summer, but typically those boffins now fear a drought, which means bye-bye hosepipe. And those are your front pages. And Josh Howie, this civil war within the Tory party continues to play out.
Yeah, well, this is in The Independent, and basically one of the former ministers, Lord Duncan, who's now in the House of Lords, is saying that Boris Johnson is on probation. Saying that, of course, he's been on probation now for since he was, 4 or something, so he's never actually...
Yeah, he's had a really hard 45 years, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's been very, very tough for him. But maybe we might have finally found the Achilles heel, because Tory MPs are ruthless. I mean, they could do in like Rasputin, like, you know, they and there's a great quote here where basically he says that Tory party don't stab them in the back, they stab them in the face. Not even just in the chest, in the face. So essentially,
it's like Goodfellas. It's not enough to actually kill your opponent. It's got to be nasty.
Yeah, exactly. And because they're afraid for their seats. They're scared what's going to be happening. You've got 2 big by-elections coming up in a couple of weeks, and the mood out there is not positive towards Boris Johnson. And beyond just the Partygate, beyond just the multiple lies and everything like that, he's not delivering. Beyond, you know, cost of living, all this stuff that's going wrong, but even he still hasn't shown us this plan. How are we going to get from here to here? What is your vision?
Do you mean in terms of the economy, the cost of living crisis?
In terms of the country, all this stuff like, the red wall, we're going to be upping life space, all this stuff. Nothing's actually happened. Nothing's going on.
Does he not have the mother of all excuses, which is the pandemic and the economic crisis which followed?
Yeah, but at some point you just kind of got to go, we want you to deliver something, please.
He at least needs to create the impression that he's back in the driving seat.
Yeah, exactly, that there is something that is coming.
Because I know you don't love Boris Johnson, but I guess what you're saying is that he's our Prime Minister collectively and he needs to govern.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, he's not saying that. He's not supporting the dude at all. Now, first of all, when has anybody ever liked Boris Johnson? Even the people who like Boris Johnson don't even like Boris Johnson. So he's never been liked.
They like him with a heavy heart.
That's not true.
They like him reluctantly.
They like him reluctantly. They think he's a good sort. Somebody's got to do it. In British politics, this is the difference between American politics and British politics, is that in British politics, you have to, these guys have to pretend to like him. And they have to feel comfortable pretending to like Boris Johnson. And a lot of them, but it's only 148 that don't like him. 211 like him.
Yeah,
that's more than
40% or whatever.
That's
that
40%.
Don't like, yeah, but who don't like him. But listen, no, I mean, come on, man. The whole thing about Boris Johnson is his likability, or has been. That charm is what's got him through everything to this point. To say that that it's not about likability, it is about likability. But at some point, that's going to meet reality, and you've got to deliver.
Yeah, deliver with somebody else is going to. First of all, there's nothing that can be done. You know,
well, let's end the show now.
Yeah, I mean, we should, because it's like, you mentioned the COVID thing. It's like they borrow...
You're saying that like you've never heard that word before.
I don't like to use that word. I like to call it underlying health conditions.
That's not a bad shout.
Underlying health conditions 19, underlying health conditions 21. Anyway, so what is the point you're making about the dude? The dude is that it's a different political system here. People don't like him, but he has done an amazing job of staying in power. Whether he's done a good job or a bad job, who's to replace him?
But that's it, though. That's the problem. His job literally seems to be to stay in power, not to deliver anything positive for the British public.
You are both in show business, Lewis, a consummate performer on both sides of the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Boris Johnson, love him or hate him, which we agree is a divided group. This guy's got star quality.
Yes.
He's got the X factor, and that's not going to go away. When there's another election, he could just turn on the charm and he could once again win.
Yes, because you know why he has the star quality? Because he is the Prime Minister and he's the star. And he knows he's the Prime Minister. I guess that's what makes star quality.
So you feel like he's the incumbent, and when you're the incumbent, it's yours to lose.
And since the way politics work in this country is like this, talking about backstabbing and front stabbing, and there's nobody else, there's no other place for a politician to develop, what do they call that? His own power base. In America, you've got, what's his name?
America, it's all about front shooting, back shooting.
Not that even front shoot. They just say, hey, I want to be the president. I'm not happy with this guy. I want to be the president.
I'm going to assassinate him.
No, it's like you have the guy in Texas and the guy in Florida who are competing against Donald Trump, and even in the Democrats too. The political system here. I hate to say it. I don't know to start off the show this way, but is very poor.
Why do you think it's poor? I mean, many people would say America is dysfunctional because you've just got a choice of two candidates, who've got to be multimillionaires in order to campaign to actually win the job. And whereas in Britain, anyone can become Prime Minister.
Yes, literally anyone. No, as a matter of fact, that's not true. The politician doesn't have to have... They have to be given money by groups. Like Obama didn't have that much money. You know, he was given money by
The
people.
party war chest.
Not the party war chest, rich people's war chest. There is no party. There is no, like in this country, there was a behind closed doors, they decide you can run for this and you can run for this and you can't run for this. And so you're beholden to the party. In America, you're beholden to the people who are going to give you money, which is the democratic way.
Predictions. Does the Prime Minister Boris Johnson survive and fight the next election, Lewis Schaefer?
I think he does. I'm not saying I want that to happen. I mean, I think.
What do you think?
I think he's the duck that's leading the chevron across the sky. He's a very colorful duck, so people think that he's the duck that's leading at people. He's just like the duck. If he wasn't there, it'd be another duck. It would be another duck.
I sense a book coming from you, Lewis.
Well, there you go.
That's going to be the title of your book.
Boris Johnson, dead duck or ugly duckling?
Flying duck. Lewis's flying duck book.
Count Duckula?
Yeah, exactly. We'll see if he gets
It's actually funny, you know, dead duck.
There you go. There's your headline. Well, let's move on to another story, tomorrow's Telegraph, and it looks like Joe Biden is not faring too well either, Lewis.
Well, it's a similar kind of situation, but I mean, Joe Biden is actually physically unable to be president of the United States. It's not like he's an idiot. You feel bad for the guy.
He's not a stupid man. The guy is just not that well. His cognitive health is clearly in decline.
Yes, clearly.
Are you allowed to say that in America?
I don't. Probably you are. I don't think that
They wouldn't know what cognitive means.
It's a long word.
Yeah, but I don't understand that.
Yeah, trust me, it was funny.
And no, is this? They could. People have said it. Its popularity's at record low. It's like 38%, which is unbelievable, which is worse than Donald Trump. But people can say, his own party can say, we don't want him. There can be people who are saying, what about this guy? What about? Unfortunately, Democrats don't have anybody out there who's done a good job, because all those red states, blue states that the Democrats were in control of did a horrible job, and where they ate their own. Like they destroyed Mario Cuomo. He could have been president, but his own people.
No, and what they did when they organised and arranged for Joe Biden to be the presidential candidate, he won the primary. He didn't win it by being great. He won it by being the only candidate that no one really hated.
Yeah.
He was like the default candidate, wasn't he? Grey-haired, old white man that's quite uncontroversial.
Safe hands compared to Donald Trump. But everybody, now Donald Trump looks like he's Mr. Reliable.
He looks like bloody Abraham Lincoln compared to Joe Biden, don't you think?
Biden has been a disappointment, there's no doubt. The one thing that isn't mentioned in this article in the Telegraph is Afghanistan. Which was just a massive...
And it's worth pointing out that you would, in principle, be a Biden supporter. On paper...
I'm certainly a Democrat. I'd support Democrats.
You'd be voting Democrat rather than a Republican.
But he's pushed through a few things that I think are ridiculous. But this thing about what he did in Afghanistan is a travesty. And now you have the women out there back to being basically second-class citizens, girls not allowed to go to school, and that's all on him. They should have absolutely sorted themselves out before just abandoning it.
Josh, tell me about the anti-immigration protests in Peckham in south East London.
Yeah, so this is in the Daily Mail, and basically yesterday they were going to collect a gentleman from, I believe, from Nigeria, a Nigerian national who was suspected of overstaying his visa. So that's not a good thing. Like, that is technically breaking the law. If you have overstayed your visa, then you get deported. Now, whether this person's Nigerian or not, whether they're going to be sent to Rwanda, that's not a good thing. That person legally can be deported. 200 protesters surrounded the officers involved. The police had to come. There's some kerfuffles. And basically, they sorted out some paperwork on site where then the man was left alone. Now, look, I don't know, because when I read occasional stories about the Home Office, and there are some instances where you're like, this is wrong. Like, this person's been here since they were 3 years old. This person was born. There's lots of...
It sometimes looks draconian and punitive.
Yes.
And there is the backdrop of the Windrush scandal, which was a disgrace.
Absolutely. So I don't know the specifics of this. I do know that mob rule is pretty much
not how we
not a good. That's not how the
business.
system works.
You've got people protesting.
Shouldn't work that way.
People protesting at cinemas for a film they don't like. People protesting now because somebody's about to be deported. That's not really, that's not the rule of law, is it, Lewis Schaefer?
No, it isn't. And that's what people who are watching this in America are thinking, wait a second, England's a country of laws. And
We've got some American fans.
they're going to be watching
From you,
me.
yeah.
Well, let me
Wow.
tell you, my Auntie Patsy from California is watching the show.
Okay.
Hello, Patsy.
If you
Good to
told
see
me
you.
that, I would have dressed up.
Yeah.
If only I'd known. Okay.
And her lovely husband, Al.
Oh, she's got a husband.
Yeah.
All right. I was hoping maybe she could invite me back to
No,
America.
she's not. She's not a wealthy spinster, I'm afraid.
Do you know
I
what?
know that's your favourite kind.
What? I'm in a free ticket. I'll go back. I'm sure. No, I know this story, and because I know these councillors, and because this is my home borough.
Is it south,
Yes,
by the way? Is it
Southwark.
southeast or southwest?
Southeast.
Good.
It's Southwark, Peckham. I live in part of Peckham, SE15.
Don't give too much detail because
They can track you down, mate.
You've got fans and they'd like to meet you.
Okay, and these are the same people, Southwark Labour, who should care for. They do care. Maybe they care for immigrants like this, but they're the same people who were involved in the destruction of two of the largest estates in all of Europe. The destruction of these estates, where they've been basically kicking people out of their homes so that they could redevelop these estates, sell them off to wealthy developers. These people. Southwark Labour.
Is this the Labour Council?
It's a Labour
And a lot
council.
of them are Corbynites? I
Yeah.
want to say that.
No, a lot of them are not Corbynites.
Well, I believe,
They-
but in this particular instance, going to the protest, it is. And I think it's creating a bit of a headache for Labour, who are certainly, whilst they've not necessarily got their own ideas about what to do about immigration, certainly don't want to be seen to be siding with people protesting against police trying to do their job. So I think this is a bit of a headache for Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
And he's probably going to want to distance himself from it.
This is not Keir. Maybe these people say they're Corbynites. I don't believe it. I think the party is totally in the hands of Starmer in the borough, and they have total disrespect for the poorest people of the borough, which is ironic.
So you're saying that there's social housing that should have been preserved and what, just
That should have been-
refurbished?
Yes, refurbished. Instead, the council destroyed these estates, the Haygate estate in its entirety, and they're destroying the Aylesbury estate. And they're selling it off to developers. They sold it off to...
This guy here is Southwark councillor James McCash. It says he's a Marxist. So, I mean...
It's
You know
encouraging,
what?
isn't it?
You know what? You should have him on this show because it's funny. It's like a comedy. When you meet these people, they're all Marxist socialists, but they're totally, completely... I don't know what the right word is. They're hand
Have
in
you
hand.
noticed the number of sort of high-profile politicians and indeed commentators who are now calling themselves Marxists?
Yeah.
It's like, do we not have to remind people
Maybe
that
not a good
Marxism's a
thing.
really bad idea?
Yeah,
That
where did it end up?
It famously wasn't great.
Do you know what? Marxism is not a good idea. I with you 100%. But neither is selling off our council estates to the highest bidder to be built for buildings,
You know,
houses.
you're much more left-wing than I remember.
Yeah. What?
You know what it is?
Lewis Schaefer's gone woke.
No, that's totally not true. That's totally.
Don't get him fighting. He'll punch you. Can I just say this about?
I live in a council estate. That's why I care about the
And let's be honest,
Don't wanna get
you
knocked
can see what's going on, and you're telling it as
and
it
I
is.
can see it.
Yeah, I've seen you. You've been fighting this for a long time. I see you on social media.
You're very active in your community, defending parks, libraries, other public resources.
Parks, cemeteries.
What's so weird is how much they hate you, though. That's what I don't understand.
What's the cemetery thing? What's that?
Cemetery thing is a similar kind of situation where the council has gone in and they want to reuse graves, which sounds amazing, but there are people already buried in the graves. There are monuments, memorials on top, headstones on top of the graves, and there are trees growing. But the council wants to do and is doing, or has done, is they've cut down the trees, they've taken the memorials, they've taken the memorials away, and then they've buried people on top of dead people.
Okay, well, look, time for one more before the break. On that funereal note, let's not dwell on
Was that a bit too
Lewis Schaefer's obsession with graveyards, the fact that he stalks them in the dead of night.
And the daylight, too.
Garlic round his neck.
That's where he lost his virginity.
I don't need garlic.
With a living person, I hasten to add.
I'm at home there.
I'm glad to hear it.
Come and visit the cemeteries of Southwark. Nunhead Cemetery, Camberwell Old Cemetery, fantastic place.
Death becomes you, Lewis. Let's finish on Prince Andrew. That came out all wrong. But let's have a look at this one, Joshua. This is in Monday's Telegraph.
Well, actually, yeah, and it's covered in the Mail. It was on the cover of the Mail as well. Basically, he wants his royal status reinstated, recognised and respected. And he's also asked for his most prize. He wants the coveted title back of colon LC or something like that.
Colonic irrigation.
Of the he wants to be the colonic irrigation of the Grenadier Guards, essentially. So this actually, a couple of weeks ago, we also reported on the story. A lot of the people in the palace are basically reporting that he's moved back near Windsor. He's visiting the Queen a lot because he's scared, because he knows Prince Charles is not for him getting back into public life, and he knows the only person who can do it is the Queen, and time is not on his side. So he is trying to get back in her good books, trying to persuade her to get this HRH title back. Do you think he's trying to get her to quickly sign stuff? Yeah. Oh, mummy, could you just? Yeah, exactly. It's not good. But there is an issue of what to do with him now. What is his role going to be, whichever way? Personally, I heard that Windsor, there is an opening at Pizza Express.
Well,
and not sweating might be good working in the kitchen.
With those pizza ovens are famously hot, about 300 degrees.
It's gonna help
this guy is not going to be sweating on your margarita.
You get the job like that.
He won't be huffing and puffing on your American hot.
Depends how old it is.
How big's his pepperoni? Lewis, what do you make of... the bottom line is, Prince Andrew and you are similar in some ways.
That's almost defamatory.
A silver fox in his prime, a man of many appetites.
A man who's not really working.
You always settle out of court. Settle out of court.
I settle. Here's the point about the guy. He's called he wants to be a working royal, which is an oxymoron. A working royal. He's not. He's not a working royal. I would suggest the guy should not. If he wants to get his jobs back and get back in good graces, he should not appear on TV. That didn't work out.
The interview on Newsnight was a catastrophe. And it was hubristic, wasn't it? This guy was so arrogant. He thought, I can style this out.
Yeah, there was part of that. It was also I don't want to say it because he's another human being, but he's a bit dumb.
Say it.
He's a bit dumb.
That's what Christine Hamilton said earlier, that the guy is just one sort of mini Mars bar short of a...
Yeah. And
but he's been in the echo chamber. He's been protected, so no one's basically said to him, mate, you're a bit dumb. I'm lucky because I'm a bit dumb, but I've always had people telling me I'm dumb.
That's a double bluff. See, that's what clever people always say, I'm stupid, and then they trick you.
Like I said that I was a loser before. I'm not a loser. I'm a fantastic success. No, the point of the dude is that he went...
the second dude you referred to this evening.
Who was the other dude?
I don't know. Someone else. You're like, that dude.
The counselor. Yeah. Well, they're dudes to me. Anyway, the point... One point is that he went and did that Newsnight interview, and... he was unprotected. They just sent him out there. His own people did not take care of him. And
apparently he's always unprotected. That's another problem.
Very good.
This is the news, Mark. If you're not going to take it seriously.
It's terribly serious, and we've got lots more hard-hitting stories to come. I think you'll agree we're travelling business class tonight with the brilliant Josh Howie and the remarkable Lewis Schaefer. Lots more to come. 2 juicy sections. Next up after the break, are robots the future of farming? Is the NHS in need of more funds? And is discrimination against people's accents on the rise? We'll discuss all of that in 2 minutes.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers.
Yeah. We're on the same team, Nick.
Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners with myself, Mark Dolan. And tonight we're taking a look at tomorrow's front pages with the hugely talented comedians Lewis Schaefer and Josh Howie. And let's get to our next story. And it's the Times. Overworking the NHS is having consequences. Lewis.
Yeah, we're just reading this thing that, you know, it's a story in the Times about a guy bringing his dad to the emergency room, and it's taking him 10 hours or 12 hours in the emergency room, and how the entire thing is completely messed up. I mean, like, this is like news in this country. I mean, maybe it's news to the people watching in America. They're thinking, oh, my God, the NHS is amazing. We want the NHS. But this is horrific.
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, do you think, because we don't have a debate about the NHS here, it's a sacred cow.
Yeah.
And politicians always say we won't privatise it, we will never sort of do anything to adulterate the principle of the NHS. Do you think it needs to be changed?
I think it needs to be eliminated and start again. I think the good thing about the NHS is, and I don't want to, you know, I'm going to need the NHS at my age. I need it. I use it all the time.
You're very pale, I've got to say.
Do you think I am?
And I don't like that lump.
Yeah, it's called my head.
Yeah, so you're going to be using it. You don't want to slag it off.
I don't want to slag it off. The best thing about the NHS is you're totally relaxed about health care until you need it. So you spend your entire life not worried about having to go to the hospital, whereas Americans are, but the Americans are worriers anyway. They're chronically worriers, so they like to worry. They like to worry that they don't have the right coverage, that they're going to have to pay for it. Here in this country, no one worries about it until they have to call for an ambulance, like the Times says, and they have to spend 12 hours in the emergency room.
And then that's a tragedy. Briefly, if you get rid of it and start again, what does the new system look like?
It looks like exactly the opposite, a totally paid system which people will benefit from, and then they'll grow unhappy, and then we'll reinstitute a free system like the NHS. You've got to completely throw something away.
Can I just tell our viewers not to take Lewis seriously? He does not mean that in any way.
Although, is there a kernel of truth in what you're saying about scrap it and start again?
I think there's a kernel of truth. I think the people I've dealt with, people in the NHS are very good people. The doctors are very good. Yeah. It's on principle, it's very good. The problem is, it's considered to be a free service. So they're giving you something for free, so you feel guilty about asking for it.
But it's not free. We pay our taxes.
Exactly. But you go to the hospital and they act like they're doing you a favor. Nothing personal.
I don't know if that's true.
But also the fact that it's free means that people abuse it. They don't turn up to their appointments.
Well, there are people...
They don't look after their health because they think, oh, well, I'm going to eat terrible food, I'll get fat, and then the NHS will fix it. Imagine if when you were diving into that McDonald's hamburger or the Coca-Cola, you might think twice if you knew that it was going to cost you a lot of money years to come because you'd be paying for your own...
That's not affecting the Americans, is it? They're loving their hamburgers, and that's got nothing to do with that. But look,
good point.
What this story is about is someone who works for has basically said it's shattered. It's not broken, the ambulance service, it's shattered. That's how bad it is at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
You had, in April, there were 41,000 handover delays, longer than an hour. This is handover, so when they drive into the hospital, they're meant to just immediately hand over for triage and to be seen. So 41,000 took longer than an hour. That's meant to take 15 minutes. And because of that, about 4,000 people had permanent disabilities or died or whatever. So there is a real problem there. They need to get on top of it and start solving it. It's not always been that way, so it can be fixed again, but they need to put those pieces back together.
Can we have a bit of the show which is called the bit where Mark is furious about lockdowns? Because the legacy of this is the fact that not just the damage to the economy of 3 national lockdowns and incarcerating healthy people for months on end, willfully shutting previously viable businesses, but the NHS itself became the national COVID service. And I think culturally completely overreacted to the virus by not treating other illnesses.
Absolutely.
I mean, is that not a legacy of
this
2 years?
But whether this is connected, this is people having accidents, the system's broken down somewhere. Probably just like what's happened with, they're not used to the usage of it. Just like with all the holiday issues with the aeroplanes last week, they don't have the systems in place, and they need to get it on top of it.
And so what's going to make them put the systems in place? More money? I don't think it's going to work. I'm with
I'm not even saying it is more money, but the first thing you do is you recognise there's the problem. No. That's the first step.
The first thing you do is we work on the health of the people of this country. Mark is right. They're eating the worst. No,
issue, mate.
I think it could start immediately. Is you just say, we're not going to serve McDonald's anymore. Maybe put them out of business. Not that I believe in that. I'm a libertarian, but that's number one. And number two, you let the. I don't know what to do really about it. I think the healthcare system in America is completely shattered as well. But people are happier with it.
Interesting. It enjoys public consent. Fascinating conversation. We'll move on now. Tomorrow's Mail and potential NHS contractors trying to impress others by adopting Stonewall's ideology. So what is Stonewall? What is this all about?
So Stonewall is a lobby group that used to lobby for lesbian, gays and bisexuals. Now it lobbies for LGBT, so trans people, plus, which is basically the rest of humanity, essentially. What Stonewall has is they have this diversity scheme that proves that companies sign up to, pay a lot of money, thousands of pounds to do, and Stonewall goes in and gives them a certificate and says, you're a brilliant, diverse company, and you treat your trans and homosexual employees brilliantly. That's fine, right? Except for the fact that the trans stuff has taken over and they're pushing ideology, a lot of it actually against the law. They've been giving the wrong advice to companies for years now about the Equality Act. And this is actually a bit of an insane story because Daily Mail's reporting that an NHS trust, the Lewisham and Greenwich NHS Trust, in its bidders for getting in tendering for new people to come in and healthcare contracts, which are worth millions of pounds over years. 5 of these 35 questions that they would put out to people were from Stonewall. And that is amazing that an ideology that's been pushed by a lobby group is having more of an impact on what decisions they're making as opposed to the cost of the service, how good the service is, the experience of the providers, all that stuff.
And by the way, that's more matter of public health.
Yeah, exactly. So because
that would be nice, wouldn't it? If the NHS did a little bit of public health, or have I lost the plot?
So the fact that 5 of the 35 questions that have been put out are related to Stonewall questions is ridiculous and a little bit insane. Now, they're saying that 10% of their questions should be about the environment or social aware. Yeah, but that's 3.5 questions. But they've done more than that just on this particular issue. Nothing to do with the environment, nothing to do with how you're going to affect the local environment or bring in different people or diversity or ethnicity or any of the other stuff. It's just focused purely on this.
All of that stuff, the diversity, the inclusivity, and also the environment, perhaps those are factors, but they ought to be minor factors by comparison
they're meant to be 10%.
To the
delivery of a service that is good value for money and delivers what it says. But the fact is, but the stuff that Stonewall is pushing an ideology. So it's a lobby group. It's not like their stuff is that they're pushing for the thing that says now that to be gay is to be same gender attracted as opposed to same sex attracted. There are lots of things there that are wrong with what they're, or I believe to be wrong with what they're
at least
pushing.
debatable.
And is debatable.
So what's the real-world consequence of this? Does this sort of lobbying and frankly, this politics, does it lead to that story we talked about yesterday of the NHS with a web page about ovarian cancer, saying that it's people with ovaries can get ovarian cancer, not referencing women.
What it's leading to...
Is it like that?
No, what in this particular case is what it's leading to is Stonewall making lots of money from these companies who want to be in Stonewall's good books to then win these tenders.
If that were the only bad thing, then that wouldn't be that bad, really, that some company makes money, or, Stonewall makes money off of it. But it sounds like, to me, according to this article, that they give an equal weighting to those with the Stonewall's concerns about, like, equity and whatever, trans issues, with training, length of hospital stay, patient satisfaction, and risk assessment. So they're saying that how well the hospital is doing is not as important as how well we're reenacting the Stonewall.
Yeah, the gender ideology.
Yeah. Well, when you've got a tube down your throat, do you care about diversity, the environment, or people's pronouns?
I don't even think when you don't have tubes down your back, down your throat. Most people don't care.
No, I think that's exactly right. Fascinating stuff. Lewis, can we talk about a story in The Guardian and accent discrimination?
Oh my God! Well, this is right up my alley, because according to The Guardian, and there was the British Academy, which I had to look up where they are. I don't even know, because there's so many British academies, British institutions. They seem like they're amazing.
You are in Britain, by the way.
I know, but it's like, what does the academy mean? It could be academy of anything, anyway.
Is it like Police Academy?
Has
it got a guy that can do really good sound effects? And then a really, really tall policeman.
You know what, English? Well, it's about accents, and the thing is that they're saying that people with bad accents.
Even saying bad accents. It's interesting that you say that. It's different accents.
Different accents. So this guy, Robert Mackenzie's a doctor. He's from the Northumbria University Project, part of, this thing. He says that people with northern accents are not as respected as people in the South, wherever the South is considered, right? And he says that they're considered less ambitious, less educated, the people in the North, that they're that they're less intelligent solely based on the way they speak.
Okay.
Right? Which is not good, but at the same time, people in the North are also stereotyped as being friendly, outgoing, trustworthy, salt of the earth folks. So it's checks and...
Well, isn't this, Lewis, a perpetuation of victim culture? That all we do all day long now, all these organisations do, is think up different ways for groups to be depressed about themselves. So the latest now is, you've got a Northwest accent, and therefore life's going to be terrible to you.
That's why you're not successful. Well, the truth is that according to what this study has done, this accent discrimination is not even as bad as it used to be. It's getting better and better, yet they're making a big deal about it now. They didn't make a big deal about it, 50 years ago.
Yeah, but that's because arguably and I say this as obviously someone with quite a posh accent, the accents have been better represented on TV shows now, on news shows, not on this particular podcast, your accent. But it does have real world ramifications. I personally think there's massive discrimination about accents in this country. It also ties into class, and I would say it affects you. Arguably, I'd be interested to know the effect of, they talk about ethnicity and the different, I would say people's class, people's perceived class because of their accent has a big impact. It says here they're more likely to be found guilty in court, less likely to be offered a job and interview, less likely to be given access to social housing. And as it says here, this has real world implications.
If they're in a place where they don't belong. Maybe.
Well, so you think it goes down to tribe? Well,
but it's like my situation. I speak from this firsthand because when I was in New York, I used to speak with a New York accent, and you probably think I speak with a New York accent now.
Oh no, you've completely lost it. I thought you were from Sheffield.
Thank you very much. And I had a New York accent, and I actually went to a speech therapist in New York. And
you should have gone to an actual therapist. Money better spent.
And what makes America one of the greatest countries in the world? It was actually covered by my health insurance plan.
But why did you go to a speech therapist?
Because just like Northerners are not respected, and considered more intelligent, having a Brooklyn accent, I used to talk like this, and I still talk a lot like this. Talking like this, it's harder to get a job selling jet planes or selling high fancy clothes.
That's why you got into comedy, because you couldn't get a job selling jet.
No,
planes.
but this accent is, that's what you're saying. Ironically, this accent is perfect for stand-up comedy. So Northerners should do what their trade, what their voice says. Oh, yes.
Well, it's true, because there are Northern comedians. I mean, half of their act is just the accent. I mean,
It's
Peter
just
Kay,
funny.
very, very talented guy, but just the actual accent, the turn of phrase, makes the guy...
It makes him a megastar.
Megastar. I think you're right. So did they try to iron out your accent? Is that what?
Yeah, they did. I went to the guy that I went to was Andy McDowell, speech therapist. He's like a speech. That's what they call it in America. Speech therapist.
In the UK, you'd call that elocution.
Elocution lessons.
Yeah, and that would be to transfer your accent from a regional accent to what in this country is called RP, received pronunciation, or the Queen's English.
And that was my goal, is to have a standard American accent.
Did you get your money back?
Well, you know, the interesting thing was, before I went to this place, I went all over I went to many different places looking for, and I would say to them, you know, can you fix my accent? And they said, there's nothing wrong with the way you talk. You talk fine.
But your accent isn't the same as your parents' accent. I know
it's
your
not.
parents.
Correct, yeah.
And you have quite an sort of
Well, both
RP
of my
accent like
parents
myself.
are Irish.
Yeah. And you're a Republican, you grew up in a pub?
I grew up above a pub in Kentish Town, North London, and I went to a private school, so I guess that impacted my accent to a degree.
Yeah. That's it. My parents were working class. I went to private school, and then suddenly you were posh. There you go. Yeah. And then do more doors get open to you? Here we are on television, arguably.
You could argue, let's not talk ourselves out of a gig.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
But you know something?
Everybody.
Full disclosure, though, I don't want to appear insincere, but I actually spent quite a lot of money going to a speech therapist, like an elocution myself, to get a Brooklyn accent. And I talk like that for a while.
Alex accent.
It was terrible for my broadcasting
That's why
career.
you've done quite well.
And they said, you know Louis Schaefer?
Louis?
Lots more to come. We've saved our best till last for the final part of the show. Coming after the break, is artificial intelligence getting too advanced? Can you be too old to teach? And would you date a Tory? See you in 2 minutes.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
I'm Mark Dolan and welcome back to Headliners. A first look at tomorrow's papers in the company tonight of the brilliant comedians Louis Schaefer and Josh Howie. And let's start with this next story, Monday's Mail, and a story about artificial intelligence becoming as sentient as a 7-year-old. Josh, tell us more.
Yeah, this is kind of scary, take over the world stuff. A Google engineer who's now been suspended released online these conversations, part of his job, has been having with this artificial intelligence call, and it's pretty scary stuff. This Lambda is the name of the AI, and it sounds well, it doesn't sound human, but it sounds, they're proper conversations, proper replies, and it's a bit scary. It's a bit sort of take over the world stuff here.
Yeah, I'm worried about this. I would like a 5-year pause on new technology, Lewis. Can we just have a break and recover our position?
Do you know what? At your age, that's worthy. I want a complete stop forever. I mean, I'm too old to deal with it, I think. I'm saying that, but that's not true. I love technology.
Yeah.
I think this is the kind of thing where it's just, you shouldn't even be worried about something like this. They've been working on this thing for at least 30 years. Or more. I remember I had a girlfriend who set up a company to have this as like a psychiatrist. So you'd speak to a psychiatrist and they would be empathetic and they would listen to your questions and give you answers. And this was like before.
Now, did she set it up after your relationship? Is that why she set it up? She was like, you know what? I know a guy who I don't want to talk to him anymore. I just need to go on and get this AI created to deal with it.
It could be.
It could be. Let's move on to the Telegraph now. And how many genders can you fit into a school, Lewis Schaefer?
Well, it's an amazing, when you hear these stories, if you don't think about them, you think, oh, this is reasonable, because there's some, head teacher that the Telegraph writes. She's a head teacher of a single-sex private school. Okay, so she's very cautious about using terms to the students. She doesn't want to call anybody girl, and it's only girls. She doesn't call anybody a girl just in case they don't think they're a girl, right? But yet they're at a girls' school, a single-sex school. So if she has, then why call them? I think if they're a girl, you should call them a girl, especially if you're a single-sex school. It's in the title of the school, single-sex, one school. Now, you mentioned the term gender, and I think this is the problem with these things. I think the average person doesn't know the meaning of the word gender compared to the word sex.
Yeah.
Do you think there's truth in that?
Yeah, absolutely. And she is giving into an ideology. She says here that teachers have a duty to listen to the beliefs of young people. Beliefs of young people, not the facts of young people. No, we don't have to listen to the beliefs of a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old. And saying they wanted to transition genders will not be a passing fad, and the number is likely to increase, which is scary. Why? Because the 13, 14, 15-year-old girls are then going on to get double mastectomies. They're taking puberty blockers, which are affecting them, making them infertile and sexually inactive for the rest of their life. And then guess what? They turn out to be 20, 21, and they detransition from their belief, and they're physically changed.
Yeah. And actually, all it was back in the day is that they were tomboys who enjoyed rugby and Formula One.
Well, the problem is waiting for the time to come when they're 22. Or let's say they're 30, and then the lawsuits come.
Well, that's it. It's already happening now in America.
Yes, right. Lewis Schaefer, how do you identify?
I have a driver's license. I use my driver's license.
I think that's the way to go. If you wouldn't mind walking in a straight line for us, I'd appreciate that. Let's move on now to tomorrow's Times. And we've all been taught by old battle axes, but how old is too old to teach, Josh?
Well, this is it. So there is a teacher shortage in this country. I think 15% of the number of physics teachers that we need for next year are being recruited at the moment. So there is a deficiency here. And some of the people who are stepping up to that are people who have retired or changing careers in their sort of 50s, who've had very successful careers. This person here is this is a former Financial Times columnist. There are people who had their own businesses, switching to teaching, and is basically saying that they're receiving discrimination from the pupils, and even from, in one case, to give an example, from a headmaster who was sort of saying, no, this is a job for people in their 20s and stuff, which seems ridiculous, because to get a teacher in your 50s with actual life experience, someone who's actually been out in the world, sounds like an amazing opportunity for students.
Or it's a sign that the Financial Times is not hiring older people and their age discrimination, or they're paying teachers way too much money, and that someone's going to give up a job as a formal financial. I assume this person probably knew how to handle money. They were a Financial Times columnist, and now, it's so bad they've got, or so good that they're going to be a teacher.
Yeah. I know, I smell a rat. Well, moving on to Monday's Independent, and would you consider dating a Tory, Lewis?
That's interesting, because that's what the Independent, it was not even an article, it's just some comment that some rando made to the Independent, that the Independent thought it was important for them to, make a whole big deal, which is, the question is, would you date someone who is a radically different...
Can I just say, it's about there's a dating app where you can now filter people's political positions. That's what the story is.
That's been going on forever.
Although why pick on the Tories? Surely it's, would you date somebody that takes opposite political views to you?
Well, it's interesting, because the research that's been done says that conservative voters are way more likely to date Labour supporters, okay? And that men are way more likely to date...
to not care.
To not care.
Yeah.
Which just shows that conservative men are losers. They'll take anything that they think.
Anything with a pulse.
The whole point of this article is, would you date a Tory? The whole thing for men is, how attractive are they?
Yeah.
Essentially. Because if they're incredibly fit, a guy will pretty much date anybody.
And even not so fit.
Would you date a Nazi if she was like crazy fit?
Can I just point out, for anyone wondering, Lewis and Josh are both Jewish, and therefore allowed to have this.
If she was like insanely attractive.
Something, I've dated women who turned out to be Nazis.
Well, that's only after dating you, right?
Exactly. They weren't anti-Semitic when they first met me. They loved
He turned them.
Woody Allen jokes about that in his wife cooking with her Nazi recipes, chicken Himmler.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
But what about you, Josh? Would you date a hot Corbynite?
You know what? I don't know if I could, to be honest. I mean, obviously, I've been married forever and I love it and I'm very happy. But yes, I don't know if I could. And also things like someone who says to me that, sex is not binary, that kind of stuff, it's very hard to have a conversation with someone who believes the world is flat.
Well said.
Well, we've talked, Josh.
Yeah, I know, and I don't date you anymore.
And it is flat, Josh.
Yes.
Wake up and smell the coffee. And
Bill Gates says it's
women
round.
have penises. Get with the programme. It's 2022. Monday's Mirror, and this is our last story. We've all worked for some harsh bosses, but this one takes it a step further, Josh.
Yes, so a boss has been blasted. Someone stuck up a picture on social media of a sign in an office where the boss is basically saying, if you're a minute late to work, you're expected to work an extra 10 minutes after. So if you were 2 minutes late, you would then work 20 minutes extra. Obviously, that's exploitation. I'm sure that's got to be illegal or something.
Yeah.
It's certainly not right. And look, I don't like tardiness. You should be on time, but that is wrong. And but someone did funnily write at the end, replied to that saying, well, if I turn up 2 minutes early, can I leave at 5:40 instead?
Lewis, 2 seconds on this?
Well, yeah, because I, as a person who was a bad employee in 2 continents, the key thing is, if you're going to be 1 minute late, you take off an hour. Because people are going to be mad at you anyway. If you're going to be an hour late, take the morning off.
I totally agree with you.
And if you're going to take the morning late.
Roll in at lunchtime. Well, always on time and always hilarious are Lewis Schaefer and Josh Howie. Brilliant stuff. Headliners returns tomorrow at 11. I'll see you on Friday at 9.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and every weekday we bring you The Briefing live from 9:30 a.m. The stories, analysis, and live debate that you need to hear.
Quite right, Tom, of course.
Was this something that had been considered at all?
Difficult to answer.
Gas-guzzling helicopters circling. Noise is being made here.
Joe Biden walking out. Thank you very much for joining us. Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. on GB News.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with